As we all know, Kevin De Bruyne recently returned from what could be described as a very serious injury. So overall, he was out for 5 months with a hamstring injury that he was actually substituted off in the Champions League final for. So there was a bit of worry about that, because when he did go off in the Champions League final, he looked very, very upset and it looked like it hurt a lot. However, when he came back the next season, he hadn't been in pre-season whatsoever. He hadn't played a game in pre-season, which, to be honest, I think was a pretty bad move, because even if he was just substituted in pre-season, you could have really have got an idea for how bad the injury was. So he was playing in a game against Burnley that Man City ended up winning, and then this is when the injury actually occurred. So he basically just went down and then went off. And then after this, it turned out that he ended up undergoing surgery on the hamstring. His hamstring was in a really, really bad way. From the things I've seen, I think he compared it to like a wet towel or something like that. That's how his hamstring felt. So really his future, you could say, is up in the air with this, because this injury was very, very bad, and obviously because he had to have surgery on it, having to have surgery on your hamstring is really not a good thing, because usually hamstring injuries, they repair on their own. So when De Bruyne was off, well, recovering from his injury, recovering from his surgery, he didn't actually like watching his team from the sofa. Yes, he does like football, obviously, he plays it. But there, he just didn't like watching from the sofa. He wanted to actually be on the field with his team, which for me is a very, very good sign, especially from someone of De Bruyne's class, because it shows that he wants to be out there with his team. He wants to be out there with his teammates, and that is a very, very, very good sign. So yeah, he just hated watching from the sofa, because he wants to be out there doing his thing and helping his team, and especially because Manchester City have been really not having the best of seasons. I mean, for Man City standards, this really isn't the best season for them. For any normal team, it would be probably a pretty great season to be third in the Premier League, but this is Manchester City, and they have much different standards to everyone else. So he ended up returning from his injury recently in the FA Cup against Huddersfield, where Man City actually ended up winning 5-0, and he ended up coming off the bench. And here, I think this is a good move from Pep Guardiola, purely because it's like he could have brought him back and started him, but however, he's just coming off surgery. He hasn't played in like 5 months, so bringing him off the bench really is a good, and I think it's a smart move from him, because it's the FA Cup against Huddersfield, and Man City were winning quite comfortably. So just get him on the field. There's no pressure on him to perform either, because if there was pressure on him to perform and Man City were behind or they were drawing, he might re-aggravate the injury. So he really has been given time, especially in this game, to kind of like get back into the flow of things at his own pace, which is very, very important especially when you're coming off surgery, because your body's changed really when you've had surgery. So that really was important. It was his first appearance in 5 months, and yeah, he actually had surgery on what ended up being a ruptured hamstring. So his hamstring had ruptured, which really, really is not a good thing. And I'm not sure if they just reconnected it to something, or if they had to like put his hamstring back together. However, this was the injury that was aggravated in the Champions League final when he had to go off. And at this point, De Bruyne knew really it was only a matter of time before he actually got really a serious injury. So that's probably why he didn't want to play in the pre-season, because he didn't want to actually like injure it in the pre-season, which kind of does make sense. But then again, if he did go through the pre-season and he did injure it, he would have missed less of the season. However, that is my best guess, that he wanted to just kind of go through his workouts during the pre-season and then come back in the actual season, so he could hopefully play more time in the season. I don't know. But as I said, he did end up coming off the bench to get an assist. So really, you could say he's picked up where he left off. And yeah, he obviously helped Man City in that 5-0 win over Huddersfield. Another thing that he's actually come out and said recently is He goes, "I'm nowhere near where I need to be, but I feel good." So this is kind of expected, especially after what happened to him and what he's been through, going through surgery and all that. So he's nowhere near where he needs to be fitness-wise, which isn't a surprise because he's had 5 months off, and because obviously he's had surgery, he hasn't really been able to train that much. He will have been able to have trained probably a few weeks before he actually came back, but he hasn't really been able to fully train, and he might have been able to have trained his upper body more than like his lower body, because obviously your hamstring is on your leg, so he might not have been able to have trained his legs that much. However, he says that he feels good, so he is on a positive road to recovery, and he will eventually get back to his full form, hopefully. And also with De Bruyne being in his 30s, he might not get back to where he once was. However, he can get back to some sort of form and help Man City. So the fact that he's saying he's feeling good means that the surgery's worked and he's starting to really feel better, and he's starting to feel like his fitness is improving as well, which is even better for Man City. So overall for this, I do think that everything at the moment does look positive. It does look like the surgery worked. It does look like the surgery has had a very, very positive impact on De Bruyne himself. However, I do not think that he will be pushed straight back into the starting lineup for games, especially because of the nature of the actual injury. I think that Pep Guardiola will probably ease him back in. He will most likely come off the bench a few times. He might risk De Bruyne in some big matches. He might start him in some big matches, I don't know. But what I know is Pep Guardiola is a very, very intelligent, he is a very, very clever manager. So he will already have a plan for De Bruyne and how he will go about putting him back in the squad. But I would expect him to really ease him back into actually starting, and he'll probably ease him back into training as well. So for the next few games, I wouldn't be surprised if De Bruyne doesn't actually start the game and kind of comes off the bench maybe in the last half an hour, maybe even at half time. And it also could depend on the actual situation of the game. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how, first of all, how De Bruyne comes back, and I do think it will be interesting to see how Pep Guardiola eases him back into actually playing. However, another option could be that maybe he's not in Pep Guardiola's plans for the future with this injury, and with De Bruyne being in his 30s, and also with interest from Saudi Arabia as well. Pep Guardiola might just be looking to get De Bruyne to Saudi Arabia or get him out of the team, because maybe he just isn't, well, not that he's not good enough, but maybe he's on a sort of decline, especially after his injury. And then Pep Guardiola wants to kind of maximise what he can get for him, and he knows that if he keeps hold of De Bruyne for another couple of years, he might not be able to get much for him. Or he might just keep him in the team and he might ease him back into the team and hope that De Bruyne can get back to his form that he was at before. So that's kind of like a bit of an update on Kevin De Bruyne, plus what I think of his injury and how his injury really will impact him coming back in the team to Man City and how it might be implemented. So let me know what you think about De Bruyne coming back. Do you think it'll work? Do you think he'll have an impact at Man City? Do you think he won't have an impact at Man City? There's a poll for this on the community tab as well about what you think De Bruyne's impact will be at Man City. So let me know what you think about that down in the comment section. If you like the video, leave a like. Also, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel so I know to make more stuff like this. And yep, thank you for listening, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.